Hey everyone, and welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast. And I'm joined by the awesome Curtis Pipes. How you going, mate? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing great. Thank you.
That's good. Now, for those who don't know, Curtis is the self-love and purpose coach. And what I love about it, I have to admit, I don't know Curtis that well personally, but as soon as I heard his story and as soon as I was connected, it was just like, boom, I've got to talk to you, man, because I just love the journey. And that's the Pearls of Wisdom is all about everybody sharing what they have learned out of life. And I've got to say, mate, reading your story and your background, geez, you've done some hard yards. You really have. So, and for those who don't know, he's from the Midwest US. Whereabouts in the Midwest, mate?
Missouri. Columbia, Missouri.
Oh, yeah. Is that you saying that proud, or are you trying to hide that a little bit?
Maybe just a little bit. Yeah. No one's from Missouri is on here, I hope. Don't tell my mom.
That's all good. And of course, in 2010, you decided to go globetrotting.
Yeah.
And you kind of bounced around a bit. Where did you spend most of your time when you decided to travel?
I spent most of my time in New Zealand, actually. I spent there for about almost 4 years. That's the first place that I jumped to.
Okay, so New Zealand of all places, that little quiet corner of the planet, but we'll get to that in a second. But we're going to jump straight into this because, your journey speaks about it. We're going to get into that. But, the big thing for you is, mate, and people are already here and they're saying, I love your smile and everything about you. Like, you really do shine about it.
Thank you.
And the thing is, but I think it's questions about with people in life, and especially with everything that's going on. The big question is, I want to ask you is, are you happy?
Hell yeah, I'm happy. I'm still living. I'm breathing in and out every day. It's like the biggest thing that I'm always grateful for when I wake up is that I actually got to wake up to see another day. Because that's not a guarantee you wake up.
So that's interesting too, because it's like, that's a really grateful attitude to kind of take on. And I suppose you see every new day as a new opportunity to do something, yeah?
Totally.
Yeah. Now, but knowing your story, like you're happy now, you're seeing, you're living life, it exudes from you, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. So, but it's like, now, is there a time you can recall where you weren't happy in your life?
Oh yeah, definitely. Can recall 2 or 3 easy.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go there. What's when you're thinking about that unhappy moment? Because I want to reflect here. Like you now know, and I love that when you've said, straight away, it's like, hey, I'm living and breathing. I'm grateful. I've got a brand new day, all this kind of stuff. But clearly it hasn't always been that way for you. So when was this time when you really kind of felt, you just knew within yourself and you caught yourself and you said to yourself, I'm not happy? When was this for you?
I think the first time was before I left the States, I was about 22 years old. And I had a suppressed memory of sexual molestation pop back up in my life. And so it was that whole, roller coaster of did it really happen, and all these different emotions of rage to sadness to depression, and I couldn't handle it. Even when I remember this happened when I was 7, but for 15 years I didn't remember. So when it came back up, it was one of those instances that I just didn't know what to do. Like the only thing, my default was to be extremely angry, and that's what I did. For about 2 or 3 years.
And what do you mean by, like, when you're talking about angry, are you angry at yourself? Are you angry at other people? Are you angry at the world? How is this kind of manifesting in its
everything? I was angry at myself because I went down that rabbit hole. It was my fault. Definitely angry at my babysitter. Angry at the world because I felt that I couldn't trust the world. So everyone got a little bit of it.
Everybody started to feel the pain that you're kind of going through. So now you said this happened at 22, and obviously this anger is coming out and you're trying to work through this. Mm-hmm. How did you do this? How did you work through it? Because honestly, you look at the person I'm connecting with today, you wouldn't pick it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's that smile. I think it's going to be a famous smile. It's just awesome. And it's just like, you can't miss it. It's just so infectious, but it's like, that's me. And it's hard for people to imagine, kind of going back to that space and going through that anger. But what was, walk us through the journey, like how did you dealing with this anger, but obviously you recognized it, but how did you work through it? What did you do?
Well, I started first to journal because at that point I was a songwriter. So I was writing songs left and right, but I just decided to journal because I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know how to express it. And so my time at that point in my life, the way I expressed myself was through writing. So I decided to journal and just literally just vomit all over the page. It didn't make any sense in any way, shape, or form, just writing my emotions out. But then when I finally decided to talk to someone, it was because I was basically on the brink of just breaking down completely. I was in college. I was living on my own. I was running track and field, but I had to hold a job to pay my rent. And I was at work one night, and normally this girl who I have the best banter with all the time, it was just that moment, do not mess with me. Like, this is not the day for it. And I told her, but she kept poking, and she just poked the bear one time too many. And I was cutting the pizza up, and I had the knife. And I was like, look, I'm not playing. It's like, stop messing with me. And like literally the point of the knife was about that far away from her face. And I immediately knew I needed to talk to somebody because I could have cut her. Easily I could have cut her. And so I was like, I need to talk to someone. So the next day I went to my athletic coach and got in touch with the athletic psychiatrist. And we just started talking about everything, every little thing, and just started dumping, and helped me realize, relationships that I had and who the relationships were with. And do you see why it didn't work? So all these little connections started to happen. And I started to realize, okay, that makes a little sense now. I could see why I was so truculent with a lot of my friends growing up, because they resembled my babysitter. Okay. And so everyone who looked like my babysitter, before I realized what was going on at 22, got it in one way, shape, or form. I was just mean. I was just really, really mean. And realizing where it was coming from, I was like, that makes perfect sense. And so once I started talking about things, it really opened up the space to heal. And then that whole journey has been amazing too, because the other things have come from my life, and healing through those and learning through those. And so since then it's been amazing. But that first instance was just, it was huge, because I haven't experienced at that time in my life, I hadn't experienced anything like it.
And I suppose it would be all foreign because, no one really expects to, like, we hear about it, we might watch movies or a TV drama about it. Yeah. But it's always one of those things, isn't it? We never think it's going to happen to us. Yeah. We never think we're going to happen in that situation. And I suppose, 22, you're still quite young, but you've gone through, all your teenage years kind of doing that. But that's about, I suppose, in a way, your brain's gone into a self-defense mechanism. Oh yeah. To that point. So you've kind of managed to talk through. I love the fact that through the songs, music's so emotional connection helping you there. Yeah. I was working out when you said journaling. I was like, oh, yes, man, because I think a lot of my crew, and I know they're going to. I say it all the time. They go, oh, there's Pete again with his journaling, and think, see, it's not me only, right?
Hey, it moves mountains. It moved mountains for me. It still does to this day.
Oh, mate, I'm right there with you. It's my go-to. If it's really tough, it's like, I'll tell you what, that pen and paper, it cops a flogging. So it's a really, really kind of helpful thing. So you've gone through that, and you've worked through that kind of aspect of it, and mate, I give him credit to be able to, even sit here and talk about it and acknowledge like how much rage you had, and so much to a point that you were that close to a person and just feeling it. I suppose it must have been hard to kind of stop yourself and acknowledge with yourself, I need to talk to someone.
Yeah, it was. Being a male, African-American male at that, so it's like a double-edged sword. But being a male, and, men don't talk about the feelings. We don't go to psychiatry. We go to the barbershop. That was this whole thing in the States. We don't go to psychiatrists. We go to the barbershop and pretend like we have everything okay, and always operating on the top. And men don't cry and everything like that. So knowing I had to reach out to someone, because I almost hurt this woman at work, it was still like pulling teeth, because I was battling all these little conditions that I had growing up. And even the first meeting I had with the psychiatrist, I really didn't talk much because I was so nervous. I started judging myself for wanting to say things to this man. And he was a guy at the same time. So I was like, okay, is he going to judge me? He's going to say this, he's going to say that. So it took a little bit to, even though I went to my coach and I made the appointment, even before, like the hour before the appointment, I almost canceled, because I was just, there was so much anxiety there to let this stranger know what the hell was going on.
And I suppose it takes so much to admit that to yourself. And I suppose it's to be vulnerable, isn't it?
Yeah.
To allow people in and let you know how you're really feeling. And I suppose it's the judgment factor, like just thinking, what are you going to think of me because of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's a big thing. And so you're kind of working your way through that, and, you've kind of done that. So give us the timeline. So you're kind of working through that, and then you're working through the first steps, because we're just going to, I want to get to know the man that has become this self-love. And obviously we can start to see the hints of it coming out here, the self-love and the purpose coach, so, but it's like, so we're leading this up, kind of, you go through college, you're seeing this through, obviously, and you're working through this, feeling better.
Yeah, totally. Like I went to, after a couple of weeks, I went to the lady who basically almost cut, apologized to her, and actually let her in and explain to her what was going on at that time.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, because they sent me home. It's like, you got to go home. I didn't lose my job, which is cool, but they was like, you got to go home. So I went home.
They're very understanding. You must have been a good employee.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's fine. But let her in, and just like, school got better because my attitude was better, and my relationships with my friends got better. Just being able to have someone to confide in was really big.
Yeah. And so it's kind of working through it. And I love that, because just that fact of expressing, communicating, and letting people in, it's immediately adjusted, by the sounds of it, your whole life. Everything's kind of started on the improve, which is awesome. So we've got that. Now let's fast forward here, because this is where I find things, if you guys think that's kind of interesting, you got to listen to this. So New Zealand.
Otarua.
So let's walk it through here, because this is your first step of, obviously, you going through, looking at yourself, examining yourself. And I have to say, like, at 22 and be able to do that, mate, kudos to you. Because it's a young age, very, very vulnerable age, like, still nowhere near mature enough to do it, and to kind of go through that. So you've kind of finished this. So now in your journey, you get into 2010 and you decide New Zealand's going to be the place.
Yeah. I'm out. See ya. Yeah. Basically jump ship.
Walk us through what got you here.
I was working for a company called Les Mills, and they originated in New Zealand anyway. But I was working for them in the States, in my gym, doing group fitness classes and everything. I started working for Les Mills in 2008. And by 2010, I was just like, there's nothing here for me. Like, I wanted to move up in the club that I was with, but everything was lateral. I was like, I don't do lateral. And so I was like, I was gonna, see if I can move. I was moved to New Zealand. It's like, I want to learn from the best in the world. So that's where they are. So I'm gonna go. And I just started telling people about it. But where I'm from is, I consider it a small town. So it's this whole thing that people normally don't leave, or if they leave, they come back. And so they're like, how are you going to leave? It's so scary. You're not going to know anyone. Your family's not going to be there. And I was like, everything you're saying actually excites me, that for the simple fact that I don't know anyone. Cause even before I left, I was going through some shit. Excuse my language. Can I cuss
you're
on
all
here?
good, mate. You're all
okay,
good.
Yeah. I was going through some shit. And I didn't realize I was actually running from that situation until I actually got to New Zealand. But I just put out feelers. I put out 3 feelers to New Zealand to work, to teach Les Mills classes there. And my first choice was the last one to get in touch with me. It was December 16th on a Wednesday in the afternoon. I can remember like it was yesterday.
Wow.
And I got
it's a pivotal point when you can rattle off.
I was training for one of our launches. We were about to have a body combat launch in our gym, and I got the email, and he's like, we'll be more than happy to have you over. So I told people, if I get the invitation that I want, I'm gone. Simple. And so read the email, called my mom. I was like, I'm out. I moved to New Zealand. And so 2 months later, I was in New Zealand.
And just like that,
Yeah.
you're leaving a small town. It's like, but I love it. Everything's like,
Yeah.
you're so definitive. Like, I want this. It's happening. We're going with it. You got the
Yeah.
invitation and you end up going. And obviously this is when you get to New Zealand and like, you've got this invitation, we're going there. And then this is when
Yeah.
you end up in Auckland.
Yeah. It
Okay.
was in
On the
Auckland.
other side of the world, you're pretty much,
Yeah.
you're a day ahead of all your family now.
Uh-huh.
And then you get there. What happened?
Well, long story short, I ended up homeless. Let's just get right to it. I ended up homeless. And the reason that came about was, first, when I got off the plane, the gentleman that I was renting a flat, I didn't know what a flat was until I started searching, basically a room. But
It's not a tire, it's a room.
Yeah, he rented my room to someone, but I didn't know. I didn't get the email until I got off the plane in New Zealand. So they had this system called Airbus, and then the driver was like, "Where are you headed?" I was like, "Good question." And I explained to him. He's like, "Well, I'll drop you off on Queen Street. There's a bunch of hostels there, and just find a hostel." So that's what I did. But since it was only an opportunity, that's what I always have to stress to people. Is like, I moved to New Zealand on an opportunity. That was it. There was no job. So it was an opportunity to prove myself. So I was staying in a hostel, was going to my base gym to learn from my GFM and, work out and learn how they teach. But my money was going away at the same time. So having to pay for the hostel, so having to pay for food and the bus. And so eventually my money ran out. So I became homeless. And that was, to be homeless, one, and then two, in a foreign country. And three, really didn't know a lot of people. And four, I refused to go home because I was just like, I'm not going home. Because even with, like, I had to steal food. I had to, like, live on the street, like right around the corner on Queen Street. It's called ABC Hostel. I think the street name was Darby. And there's a staircase around the corner. I slept on a staircase. Wow. And right next to the staircase, there was this bar connected to a hostel. And so you had all the drunk backpackers. Didn't know what a backpacker was till I moved to New Zealand. And just waited until they would drop money on the ground, and I would take their money and save it just to go get some food from New World. And there were times where I didn't have money. And so I would go into the hostel. And at this point, when I became homeless, they knew me well enough. But they thought that I still stayed there, and I played it up for all it was worth. I'm like, yeah, I still stay here, no big deal. I would, make my way to the kitchen and steal other people's food. They had a free shelf sometimes. There was peanut butter, bread, and whatever else on the shelf. Wow. I would take that. And I would go to New World, and they had at the time these little like little buckets side by side with the little shovel in it. You can, put the food in a little bag, and you go up and you check it out. Well, I would go through and sample as many as I could. And that would sometimes be my breakfast, my lunch, and my dinner. So, and even now, smiling about it, like, people who hear this, like, how the hell do you smile about it? I was like, I actually think I can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just like, I'm a firm believer in karma, but I was like, in my head, I'm like, I have to do what I have to do. Like, I need to eat.
Well, it's instinct, isn't it? Yeah, it's basic survival. Yeah,
it's like, I have to eat. And at this point, I didn't have money, so next best thing is to steal. And so, I mean, in a month, I lost, like, I had to do conversion on this now because, okay. I lost about 5 kilos in a month. So it's like 10 pounds-ish. And people are like, oh, you're working out so well. I was like, no, I'm not eating. It's like, I'm not getting my nutrition in like I need to. So
they're probably thinking, oh, you're fasting, you're going for a body comp.
Yeah, you're so in shape. I'm like, it's not it. And like, there was a time where there was a bar connected to the house that I stayed in called Globe, and every Thursday they had this little business deal with Domino's Pizza around the corner, and they would get free pizza. But you had to be there between 7 and 7:15. And again, they thought that I stayed in the house, so I would rock down there and get a medium pizza. And I would have to ration out 8 pieces of pizza over a week until hopefully I can get the next pizza. And so it was like a bite here and there, a bite here and there. And had like the little peanut butter packets where you basically get 1 scoop out and you spread it on your bread, lived off of those. I have one actually in my book bag. I don't know what my book bag is. It's from New Zealand. The brand is called ETA or ETS. And it's like a reminder of what I went through. I was like, if you can make it through being homeless, at that point, if I can get through this homeless stuff, I'm good. But it was very, very hard because, I mean, part of me was like, you need to go home. It's like, you need to let your family know what's going on. You need to go home. But on the other side, I was like, no. I said I was moving here to be the best group fitness instructor I possibly can be. This is just an obstacle that I have to make it through. And it's just a matter of keeping my faith. And I was eventually able to turn it into a wonderful, wonderful career in New Zealand. I consider New Zealand my spiritual home and still have great relationships with people there. But being homeless in New Zealand was a hell of a turning point for me spiritually, and being able to keep my eye on the ball in my faith, and just in things working out.
So in essence, it's like, keeping the faith, but you're surviving. You're taking it pretty much day by day, but really surrendering to the fact that this is going to turn around. I'm going to get a break at some point.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you're saying there, like, how long did this period last for you before, like, it started to change?
I was homeless for about 6 weeks. Say about probably closer to a couple of months. And how it started to turn around was the bar was looking for glassies. Didn't know what that was at the time. But if you worked as a glassy, you got a free room in the hostel. I'm like, I'm there. I was like, I don't care how long I have to work. Because I started teaching classes. Like, I don't care if I get up at 5 and have to be at a class to teach at 9. I want a bed. And so I started to be a glassy and was still not earning money. And so again, drunk backpackers drop the money on the floor. I step on with my shoe and wait till they walk off and save my money. But I was able to have a place to live and still had to steal food every now and then, but at least I had a refrigerator to put my food in, which is amazing, and a bed. But that's when it started to turn around. The biggest, and I love telling the story, the moment I knew everything was going to be okay, up until that moment, about a couple of weeks before that, it was like, okay, you need to stop stealing. I was getting these nudges. You need to stop stealing. You need to stop stealing. And I'm like, well, I'm hungry. I'm going to steal. And so the morning, I went up to the kitchen in the hostel. And it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. No one's up there. And I stole food. I had a bag in the kitchen, in the big kitchen fridge, and was taking food from other people's and putting it in my bag. Made breakfast and left. And went to teach a class and take a class. And I came back to the hostel. A gentleman who was my roommate, who was also working as a glassy, was out front with all this stuff. And I was like, hey, man, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I got kicked out. And I was like, what? And he said he got kicked out because he was caught stealing from the kitchen. And I was like, when did you go in? And he was like, oh, I went in like in the morning, like 9 o'clock. So he went in after me. They caught him on camera. And so I immediately started freaking out. Like the whole day I was freaked out, but they never said anything to me. So I'm like.
So the kitchen where the refrigerator was being recorded, there was a camera there?
Yeah. I'm like, how did you, like, where the cameras? All these questions, but they didn't say anything to me, which is fine because I didn't want to get kicked out. But I was like, okay, I need to stop. And so after that point, I did stop stealing. And just there were some days I didn't eat. I just left it as it was. And then after that, I started getting classes with my gym and classes around other clubs. And so I started making money. And after that first class, it was 4:30 on a Friday in New Lynn. The opportunities and everything started to come to me. And so it was that kitchen moment on that morning. It was like, look, okay, you didn't get caught. You will get caught if you try it again. So I was like, I'm done. And I didn't steal anything after that.
But it's interesting, you knew the moment. So you're obviously having these intuitive nudges kind of happening leading up to it. And it's nice that you could actually recognize the moment because you just, I think it would have been like, I don't know if that was meant to be me, but you definitely like, that was so close to being me.
Yeah.
And I started changing. But I love the fact that, and I mean, I can't even begin to fathom what like those 2 months would have been like because you have to change your programming, you have to change your thinking, you have to, I don't know whether being smarter is the right word, maybe, I don't know whether it's going to be more cunning, but it must have felt much longer than what it was. But I suppose in a sense, do you find having that kind of experience really, like that's me, when you jumped on here and when I asked you, are you happy? The immediate thing you said, I'm just grateful I'm still here. Like you've got
Yeah.
this gratitude, mate, which is just awesome. And you think like that kind of experience just teaches you the gratitude of some of the most basic things that we really do take for granted.
No, yeah. I mean, there was like grateful for food, grateful for a pillow, grateful for a blanket, grateful for a shower, grateful for water. Just like, yeah, the small things that we could easily take for granted every day because we could get caught up in, our jobs or whatever it may be, what's going on in the world right now. I mean, all these little things that like are bare necessities, I guess, that we just take. Breathing, eyesight, being able to hear you and talk to you, speech. So going through that and just realizing the simple things really grounded me in a huge way, especially at that point in my life. And I've taken it on ever since.
And it's just something that's stuck with you because I suppose it's memories that are not going to fade away anytime soon.
Yeah.
So this is so you've done all this. That's I love it. You've gone from having you've followed, like I suppose it was a dream or that ambition that you've had. Realistically, I tell you what, sounds like universe really turned that one around on you, and
yeah, it did,
and put a real, like, it's like, how bad do you want this? Now, I always talk to some of my clients talking about how universe provides us with the lesson or the test of resolve. I don't think I've seen it quite as much as yours, the way that you talk about it of having to go through, but the resolve is obviously there. But I love it because you just literally have taken every opportunity as it comes. But it's also interesting too, like it's interesting because you talk about here, you got this nudge, and obviously when this happened and you just said, hey, look, I'm not stealing anymore, that's it, I'm done, I've got to restart. And obviously you said the opportunity started to kind of come along, but did you also find that this was like, because you've had these summer things, and did you find like this started to open up also other areas of yourself, like in the sense of that, your spiritual side and other
big time, because I would go to a church on Thursdays, 1:30 every Thursday, and just talk. So basically, the church was like my athletic psychiatrist I used to have. I just talked. That was it, because getting that stress out, getting my frustrations out, my worries out, and everything like that. Because even when I was homeless, because when I started doing it, I didn't want to tell people I was homeless.
Yeah.
Plus I didn't really know anyone that close, except for my GFM, but I wasn't going to say, oh, yeah, I'm homeless. Because in my mind at that point, he wouldn't be able to do anything. But the spirituality part was the biggest growth. About everything else in New Zealand was by far the biggest growth I ever had. It's just to be able to grow into who I always saw myself being spiritually before I left the States, and how it happened there was absolutely amazing to me. And it's grown ever since then. The things that I can feel, the things that I could see, and how it's helped me connect with other people in my family, just on a human level, who for years were shut off and I didn't know why. But being able to figure out a way to communicate with them has brought a lot of the men in my family closer together.
Wow. But it's interesting, you mentioned there, like, in New Zealand, you're having that, you had the biggest growth and you kind of could become the person that you almost saw yourself as needing to become. What was it like beforehand? What do you mean by that when you're saying, I could become the person I saw myself? How did you see yourself with that spiritual side of yourself back in the States to then having that growth in New Zealand?
I was closed off spiritually because I was living a very in my opinion, I felt I was living a very hypocritical life, as opposed to, being spiritually open. But on one end, I am being like, what's what I'm looking for? Disloyal to my girlfriends, plural. and just like, that's I can go into that too. But yeah, and then just like, seeing people in the gym and putting on this whole persona of I'm fit, I'm this, I'm that, and them feeling bad for how they look, not necessarily digging the dagger in deeper, but not lifting them up. They're like, hey, it's okay. You're here in this class. It's going to get better. I would just like, oh yeah, okay, well, you need to do this. And I didn't care. Like, to not be able to touch someone spiritually the way I wanted to, I felt bad a lot of the days going to work or interacting with people in life. It's just because that's not who I wanted to be. I saw myself being someone else. I had all this other crap that I was, in my opinion, at that point, not strong enough to deal with.
Okay.
So I was
because that was going to be my next question. It's interesting. You could feel you wanted to be this person, but I was going to. That's me, like, you know, and that's me. You've already gone through a hell of a lot. You've recognized in yourself, been vulnerable, talking to people. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what was holding you back from being that person that you could see?
Love for myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Simple as that. But I didn't realize that until I moved to New Zealand. That was the huge spiritual shift that I had. But I didn't love myself enough, because I firmly believe that when you love yourself, then like self-discipline comes into play. And so you don't allow, so you had to put your boundaries into place. I had no boundaries. Like I had none. Like if I made someone happy, I would do whatever I could to make them happy, even if it upset me. Like there was a point in my life where I would literally brush my teeth but not face the mirror until I had to spit my toothpaste out. Like it got that bad.
Wow. Yeah. Now, this is really important because, you know, there is so much talk and there's a lot of wonderful literature out there about, you know, love and love of self and, you know, self-love. But it's interesting, like, and I love it. You say it so definitively. You can just tell the way that you say it, you know, that moment, you know, that line when you've kind of gone from, this is who I was, but now this is who I am. And this is the point that I accept myself and I love myself for who I am. Yeah. Now, what makes you, how does that change happen? Where's that recognition? Where's that wake up call? If you can put it into words, because it's something like, you know, only the people who have had those moments can really fully describe them. I think a lot of us who would be listening and watching will go, I'd love to have that. And sometimes I think there's a whole bunch of people that go, yes, it's a lot of crap too. Good luck with that. But that's me. And we can tell, oh, you're not going to experience that anytime soon, but that's okay. That's your journey. But the whole point is that if you can describe it, what was the thing and how did that really change you? What was the change?
It was a nudge. I was in a relationship in New Zealand where I wasn't happy. Now, in the States, if I was in a relationship not happy, I would operate at the top, pretend I was happy, or go find someone else and cheat on my girlfriend to be happy or whatever. But in New Zealand, I was with this lady, and it started off great. We communicated well. It got to the point where we just literally be in the same room and we would communicate over Facebook Messenger. And so I was like, I can't do this. And I knew if I kept going being unhappy, then I would cheat. I just know it. Yeah. And so one day we were standing in her living room and she's like, do you want to make this work? And before my brain could kick in, my mouth said no. Yeah. Like something, like literally something took over and said no for me. Yeah. And we broke up. I moved out, found my own place, and we still were friends. But it was in that moment that I became the man I wanted to be, because that's who I saw myself being in the States, was a man who was honest with myself, a man who loved myself, a man who also loved the partner I was with. And if it didn't work, I would communicate it. In the States, wasn't happening. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. But then in that one moment in her living room, me saying no, because I probably, if it would have been a couple of more seconds, I'd be like, oh, let's try. Yeah, maybe it'll be okay. And we eventually broke up. But in that moment, I just said no, and it was over. That was the definitive moment that I was now really becoming the person, the man that I really wanted to be. And it was amazing.
And I suppose it's just you, not only, of course, in that moment, are you respecting her, but ultimately you were respecting yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, first and foremost.
And then you kind of, and I suppose it's even you saying that and going through that memory, you could see how different it must have been for you, because it's like it happened, but I can even sense as you recall that memory, there's that shift of going, this is what it feels like to just respect myself and be honest with myself. Yeah. And it's hard because of course you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. No one really wants to hurt and go through pain, but at the same time, but ultimately it's served a greater purpose because you've ended something that was ultimately going to end anyway.
Exactly.
But you've come away richer because you've found a part of yourself and a being that you can go, I know what this is like now. I know what it's like to carry this.
Yes.
And it's interesting in that situation too. Did you find, like you said, even though you feel like someone's saying it, but did you find it kind of in a way hard to say no? Like, because I suppose.
Yeah, I felt bad. Like, because like you said, you don't want to hurt anyone, but at the same time, I need to look out for me first. So I felt really bad for saying no because before that, she did this whole scavenger hunt. Like, started the apartment, a little note, go here, get a gift, a little note. I was like, and the whole time I was going through this, I was going on the scavenger hunt. I was like, when the fuck is it going to end? I didn't care. Like, we ended up at Sky Tower, I think is what it's called. And I was like, oh, hey. So we went out to dinner and stuff. I was like, fucking hell. I had to go up to Ponsonby to go to a flower shop. I'm like, I want to fucking go to a flower shop. I was like, I checked out. And that was like, okay, it's like, she's trying. You're not willing to try. You need to be honest with yourself and be honest to her. You're done. And so I think a couple of days after that is when she asked me, am I willing to try to make this work? And I said, no.
And I suppose, and I think that, and when you had that, obviously you've reached that epiphany of who you could see yourself as, which is obviously an accomplishment in itself. But I suppose, the feeling, did you feel, of course you didn't want to hurt her, but there would have been a sense of freedom because you freed yourself.
Totally. Yeah, I felt like really liberated. I felt like the old me was gone. I did feel free. I felt so free to be able to express myself the way that I wanted to for years. And now that I've done it and realized how actually easy it is to do, I can do it from that point on. I really felt free. That's like the perfect way to say it.
And it's just out of curiosity, this is, I'm looking at this thinking too, because ask me the thing in common. You've traveled to New Zealand. Like I spent years over in Japan, and I always find, different country, different culture does help the mind. Like it makes you grow up a lot.
Yeah,
very quickly. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
But I tend to find you get some of your biggest lessons there as well. But it can be difficult because obviously you're not around all your normal friends and family. But at the same time, do you find that it was easier to find yourself in this way because you were somewhere different and away from those closer kind of ties of family and friends?
Yeah, I was out of my comfort zone. I was out of my coddle zone from my family. It's telling me it's okay, it'll be okay. And my friends was like, no, you have to face yourself, man.
Yeah,
I have to face myself. There's no one here to do it. There's nowhere to hide. You have to face yourself. So being out of my hometown, like I would say I was born in the States, but I grew more in 4 years in New Zealand.
Yep. Oh, mate, I resonate so much with that. Yeah. And because it's outside that comfort zone, really learning who you are and learning to speak that truth. Because obviously that moment, I had those similar moments even with my own spiritual growth in Japan, the same kind of thing, just going, no, but this is who I am. I can't deny this, Yeah. It's like you either this is who I am, take it or leave it. So, and those boundaries, it's amazing. As soon as you respect yourself, those boundaries become very clear.
Yeah.
And I also tend to find, I don't know whether you do, but it's like, don't you cross that.
And if they do, I'm out.
Yeah. So, and it's, that's interesting, but that's what an amazing journey to get to that point. And so now that you've kind of discovered this and you've got this, and I love it because I don't want to say to you, because like even talking to you a part of what I do, but even connecting with you here now, I can feel like even in that story, you became centered. Like, yeah, I can feel like it's just almost like, it's like get right in the center and go, it's the core of you going, I now know where I am. And that respect for yourself and that, love for yourself and what's going to be. But that's interesting. So we've got that part, but you also call yourself the purpose coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
You tell everyone he likes, he's going, yes.
Yeah.
So, but where did this come in and how did this come about?
It started to come from when I was homeless. It's like, what is your purpose here? I asked that. When I asked that myself, what is your purpose being here in New Zealand? Remember what your purpose was. Your purpose was to come here, be the best group fitness instructor you possibly could be, and that's it. That's it. So it started to come from there, and then throughout life, it's just going through, realizing things that I went through in my life, and what was the purpose of that event. What was the purpose of sexual molestation from my babysitter and also my Boy Scout leader? What was the purpose of attempted suicide? And what was the purpose of the eating disorder? Like looking at these traumatic events and figuring out the purpose for it. And the biggest purpose for me was to learn that I did not have self-love. That's it. That's it. And so now what I always ask people is like, what do you feel your purpose is? And you're not going to get it right the first time. Well, sometimes you won't. I can't say you won't, but sometimes you don't. It's like it takes really looking in yourself and really being honest with yourself on where you are in the moment to see where you actually want to go. I mean, because now my whole purpose is just to really make this planet and people as happy as I possibly can. That's it. Happy and fulfilled in whatever they want to do. And that's it. Like, I really am confident, and my mom hates when I say this. It's never going to happen, but I still like to say it. Two things. One is I'm not going anywhere anytime soon because my job's not done. My mom doesn't like that. She's like, don't get cocky. He's like, no, just have faith. Simple. And the second thing is, which I will not do this, but it's like, I'm so confident in teaching self-love and figuring out, helping people discover their purposes. Like, I could seriously get together like the Taliban and the Pope and have them talk to come to an understanding, not necessarily swaying one person or the other, but come to an understanding where they're coming from, and leave it at that.
Man,
because I listen
with absolute conviction. But I just got to say, mate, if you got the Taliban and the Pope together and you smiled, it'd happen. It's just right there. As soon as you smile, it'd be like, you're going, okay, what is it? We're sold.
Yeah.
We're done with it. So, but it's interesting. But obviously, you know, fitness is the big career, and now you've kind of jumped into this. But like, even though you've been looking at this, and I love it because it's the whole thing, and coming from that very spiritual thing, I always go back and reflect and have a look. And clearly you've done a lot of soul searching around that kind of side of things to work out what your purpose is. But realistically, like, I just love the fact because, you know, when I heard it, you've really just gone, yep, this is for me. I feel like this is what I want to do. Yeah. And you've just gone gun ho, like absolutely straight into it. And you've gone off and you've started to smash it out, and kind of now where you are kind of turning into everything and helping people out. Mm-hmm. So, and I love it because it's like, I know what I mean. Because like the pearls of wisdom for me is all about the ripple effect and about how as people, we can just, you know, if we have our happiness or we have our moment or whatever else, we can, you know, then feed that on and make other people around us happy. So totally resonate and relate to you on that message, man. Totally, which is awesome. But it's just interesting. I'll just, you know, before we do kind of start wrapping it up here, but I want to have a look at these. So, you know, people do. Let's just have a look at the two things here. Let's have a look at the self-love thing, and let's have a look at the purpose thing. Yeah. Let's have a look at the self-love first. If someone's listening or watching this and they've got a question about, like, you know, because I think it's a genuine question. Do I genuinely love myself? What kind of, you know, tools and tips could you give to someone to help them to start that journey of whether they're there or not?
The first thing I would say is be honest with yourself when you ask yourself that question, and look at places in your life that you know you're not happy, yet you're tolerating it. You're not loving yourself, period. The way that you think that you probably are. But that's a good place to be, because that's a starting point. Yeah. Like it could be, you know, yes, I love my husband. Yes, I love my wife. But yet she is verbally toxic, or he beats me, or she beats me, I mean, whatever it may be. But yet you're still in it, and you talk about you love yourself. That's not the case. That's really not the case. And that's a real drastic example, but sometimes it's like that.
But that's what you need to get the message across. Totally get it.
Speaking of,
and there's some love. There's some love. Hey, hello.
I'm on my podcast. This is Brooklyn.
Hi, Brooklyn. Oh, look at you, just like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What's up?
Get in the action.
Yeah, go get some ice cream. Go.
I hope you have ice cream.
Yeah. She asks for stuff like this when I'm not gonna say no. You haven't had ice cream in a few days, so that's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Too cute.
Okay, you can go now. Shut the door. But I think that's the first part, is really just, you gotta be honest. Like, you really have to be honest.
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you don't love yourself, that's fine. Because when I asked myself, the answer was no. And then really look at where are you tolerating things? And it's like, if you stop tolerating it, will you die? No. You will learn to not necessarily adapt, but you will grow. I mean, that's what happened with me in New Zealand when I was homeless. I ultimately became a more resourceful person in my life, inwardly and outwardly.
I love that, because it's something that I've stuck with ever since my Japan days. And I remember a friend and I were talking, and it was a student of ours that gave it to us, and it was a little piece of paper about yay big, and it was a 15-year-old student that gave it to us, and on the top of the paper was a caterpillar.
Okay.
And I at the time I was like, I have no idea why a caterpillar. Anyway, it was a caterpillar, but underneath it was a question. It was so simple: are you happy? And then underneath it was yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is. And I same thing. I love that fact of like, it is when you first start this process, and I'll just point out for people who are listening, it can be hard to actually be in here in that center and ask yourself to answer, because there's no maybes. If it's a maybe, that's a no. I'm sorry. It's yes or nothing
totally.
else. There's no in between. There's no
maybe.
So I can tell that's a coaching face. It's like, that's a no.
Yeah.
But it's so important, because it's like, stop tolerating, stop trying to sugarcoat it. It's hard to be honest with yourself, but once you start that process, it's amazing. You keep it. And you go, no, this is not right for me. No, I've got to do this. I've got to make this change, or I've got to. And I think it's like anything. Once you get used to it, it does get easier. Is that something that you find? If you find that now that's just with you, it's easy?
Yeah, because it just peels back. You're just peeling off more layers. It's like, okay, this doesn't make me happy. I got rid of this. Well, what else doesn't make me happy? I need to get rid of. And what steps can I take to get rid of it? Like, from learning how to be, true to myself and faithful to myself so I could be faithful in a relationship was massive. Like, that was the first big step for me. And then learning to be happy with where I sit in my body as a man was the next step. Learning to be happy with myself in my stature as a man. I'm 5'5". You can't tell from me right now, but I'm a little guy. Being able to accept myself in my masculinity, when most of the time in society, tall man, big muscular man, that symbolizes security and safety and all these things, where I actually had women who I dated break up with me or say no because I was short. Being okay with myself and loving myself for my stature was a huge one for me. Wow, yeah. And then not being a people pleaser and learning to say no and realizing that no is a complete sentence was another massive one for me. So you just start to peel back the layers, and you just realize how things that we were conditioned to think and things that we picked up basically is bullshit. But for some odd reason, we continue to take it on, because maybe speaking up for ourselves was us being cocky, or us being arrogant, or us, not respecting our elders, or whatever it may be. But realizing a lot of things that we learn it doesn't sit well with us, and figuring out what works for you to keep you completely happy, unapologetically happy.
Yeah, that's a big note. I noticed. It's like you are unapologetically happy, and you're going to help people unapologetically help them get to their happy place.
Yeah.
And that's the same. And I think it is. And the featuring part is, I love these things, how it happens. And I was just we're talking about this happiness, and are you happy? Yes or no? And it was interesting. There's a word that you said there. It's like it was a big growth for you.
Yeah.
Like getting that. And now I finally realized why it was caterpillar, because in order to really be free and be able to spread your wings and feel that freedom, you have to answer that question honestly. Because if you don't, the only person that you're hurting is yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You start.
And I did it for years.
Well, look, hey, look, I think we all are guilty of that at some point in our life.
Yeah.
But once you start to realize, when you set yourself free that, because when you are hurting yourself, you are also ultimately hurting those around you.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people talk about, oh, you know, I've got toxic relationships or I've got toxic family, whatever else. Is like, but you're still a part of that, and you could be contributing to that. So until you wake up, and I suppose, be honest with you, you're going to be. So it's either you're contributing to the toxicity, or you're going to be taking that away and contributing to your happiness.
Yeah. So you're gonna be the cause. You're gonna be the effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, that's absolutely. So being honest with yourself is a big step to obviously help in the self-love. Now let's have a look at the purpose side of things. Now, purpose is a big thing. It's something I get asked all the time. What's my purpose? And, you know, it's always a hard one. It's like, well, I always say, if I really gave that to you, you would have no emotional attachment to it. Therefore, it wouldn't be a real purpose, because, you know, you would have found through your journeys, you focused on these things and it drove you and accomplished it. I'd imagine you felt so much better in yourself going, I stuck this out. I didn't give up. You know, I went through homelessness. I finally got a pillow, got a bed, I got a shower, then got a job, then whatever else, you know, sense of accomplishment. But if, you know, you're helping people to sense their purpose, what are the starting points? If someone says, hey, look, I think it's a very common thing. They go, oh, what's my purpose? How would you help someone start to look or start digging towards finding their purpose?
I just ask him what lights him up. Simple. What lights you up?
He's like, Pete, just stop talking because it's one way.
What lights you up? Like, I mean, because I think as humans, we overcomplicate things when really it's, for lack of a better word, it's simple. Like, I think we start to complicate things when we bring in the outside world and not stay in here.
Yeah.
So I just ask you what lights you up. And then more often than not, my clients are like, I don't know, because they've really never thought about it. They've basically lived on autopilot for a long time. So then you start to dig into, you know, they're like from childhood up into how old they are now, to see what lit you up. If for some odd reason something occurred to where you shut it down. Like for me, I know when I was little, like I have tons of energy like that. Like I'm a very positive person. Even when I was little, I actually was grateful for the small things, and I would have these little bursts of celebration standing by my friends, but they would shut it down. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? It's like I would win a 40-yard dash against my cousin who would always beat me, and I would be, the first time I did it, I was so excited, and then he obviously shut it down. He's like, why are you happy? That's never going to happen again. Then his father was like, you were never going to let Curtis beat you again. And then so got knocked down, so I wouldn't celebrate. And then I got this whole thing of you celebrate for 5 seconds and you keep moving on. 5-second rule and you keep moving on. That's what I started to do. Like I would not allow myself to be lit up. And so being able to figure out what lights you up, and now what lights me up is helping people find what lights them up. Like I have a client now, he figured out that what lights him up is to make people laugh. He wants to be a comedian, but we're breaking up all this anger stuff that he has around his father and his mother being divorced and stuff like that. But he ultimately wants to be a comedian. He didn't realize that. He didn't realize that for after like maybe the 5th, 6th session that we had. But then he remember when he was younger, how he would be the one in the living room making people laugh. Yeah. So it's being able to figure out what lights you up. And if you don't know, keep digging because you're going to find it.
And I think that's a really good point. Like, got to keep going. Purpose is not found. It's like, I think it's a process because it's discovery and it will morph or it can change.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a bit of a misconception of like, I think people think they find a purpose and boom, it's like, oh my God, my life's set. This is what I'm doing. It's like,
no.
Like, it will evolve. It will change, you know, because we grow as people. And of course, as we grow, things grow and everything around us will change as well. So, but that's some absolutely awesome advice. And I absolutely appreciate your time tonight.
No problem. Thanks for having me, man.
That's all right. But before we wrap it up, I always like to leave the best to last.
Okay.
And it's like, if you've got the one pearl of wisdom that you would share with everyone, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, and just one. Uh,
Oh, if you've
just
got them,
one-
list them.
just just love yourself. And if you are not there yet, continue to do the discovery, but just love yourself, please.
And you say it so politely. I love it.
And just like it's just one of the biggest things that I don't think we as humans do enough, or we're afraid to show it because of what people might think. Like, I don't care. I say I love myself every single day. I'm going to show it. Simple as that, because at the end of the day, I want to be happy. And I know that I'm the one who has to make myself happy. I'm not going to look for happiness in someone else. I've done that before. It didn't work. So love yourself, I think, is the biggest thing that I can give everyone on this call, is love yourself.
Awesome, mate. That is one of the best pearls of wisdom I've heard yet. Again, thanks for your time. For anybody who wants to know, curtispipes.com. You can look him up, unapologetic. This man is. He'll help you get on your path. You can hit him up on the Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it. And he's got a whole bunch of it as well. Mate, again, thank you so much for your time, your inspiration. Your story is an absolute inspiration.
Thank you very much. I'm actually putting in a book now.
Love it. Have you got a working title, or is it a secret?
No, I'll tell you the title. It's Live Unapologetically.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Love it. No, well, there you go. So something to look out for. We've got that one coming, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic. I know I'll pick it up because I'd love, to get all the other details as it kind of goes about. Mate, good on you for doing it, setting yourself up.
Peter.
It is a story to be shared. You are an inspiration. And, mate, I just want to say to you, keep smiling, because you do, mate. You make the world a better place just by being you. So
thank you.
Thanks so much for your time. Remember, guys, curtispipes.com. You can go check him out. And, mate, I look forward to it. We'll probably get you back on here again sometime to share some.
Oh, love it. Yes, please.
All right. Thanks, mate. Thanks a million. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Thank you.